Hello, and welcome to the Fiscal Year 2026 CDF Final Report webinar. I'm Moikansi Kama, and I am a Program Officer at the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs. This recorded webinar will provide an overview to guide you on submitting an acceptable CDF Final Report to the Department of Cultural Affairs for fiscal year 2026. The final report will detail your CDF-funded activities held from July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. This webinar covers the CDF final report only. If you received City Council Initiative funds, you should have received a separate email with instructions on how to complete that final report. There is a separate recorded webinar covering City Council Initiative final reports, which you can find on our website. If you have any questions about initiative reporting, please contact your program officer. To complete your CDF final report, we suggest you download the final report FAQ and review the reporting page on the DCLA website. A note on accessibility. We've created this presentation with accessibility in mind. Captions have been enabled, and a copy of this presentation that is accessible by screen readers may be requested via email to disabilityfacilitator@culture.nyc.gov. Finally, as a reminder, the Conflicts of Interest Certification Form and the additional locations template form that may or may not be required for your report can be downloaded from our website.
¿Tiene alguna pregunta en español? Puede pedir asistencia en español enviando un email al helpdesk al cdfhelpdesk@culture.nyc.gov. Claudia Arseno contestará su pregunta lo más rápido posible.
The Programs Unit of the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs is committed to working closely with you to facilitate this submission. Please don't hesitate to reach out to your program officer as early as possible if you need assistance. Please note the deadline to submit CDF final reports is as soon as possible and no later than Monday, August 3rd at 5 p.m. Every organization that receives public funds through the Department of Cultural Affairs must report on its funded projects once they are complete at the close of the fiscal year. This stipulation was included in your grant agreement. You agreed to these terms when you accepted the grant and signed the grant agreement. Remember that DCLA funds are taxpayer dollars. DCLA is the steward of those funds. You as recipients must account for how those public monies are spent. This accounting, DCLA's final report, is a form that collects relevant programmatic and fiscal information about the project DCLA funded in the fiscal year 2026, as well as substantiating documentation. On the online form, you'll be required to detail the project that was included in your grant agreement. The online final report form is designed to not only look like and work like the application, but also to display the information you originally submitted on the application. The key feature that is different from the application is that if your program officer determines your final report is insufficient, you can edit the details and resubmit the form. The report must be approved by the agency before you can receive your final payment. If your project did not take place, if there was no public service component in New York City during the grant period, or if your actual project costs were significantly lower than proposed, please contact your program officer immediately, as this may result in reduction of the total final award or necessitate return of funds previously issued. Please keep in mind that DCLA staff members evaluate the timeliness and accuracy of your reporting, as well as your responsiveness to necessary clarifications or corrections. An unsatisfactory report may cause you to receive a late final payment or no final payment, render the grantee ineligible for future funding, and possibly require you to return funds already received. Also, keep in mind these materials are examined and utilized within and beyond DCLA. They may be audited by the Comptroller's Office or others. They also provide data about the field and DCLA's relationship as a funder with you and your constituents. In that regard, the accuracy of the information you provide is critical. We have pasted a sample screenshot of what you'll see when you log in. This is the same page you saw when completing your FY26 CDF application. It is essential that all your organization contacts are updated and that inactive email addresses are removed. The email addresses of the active users listed under User Management in your DCLA portal are our primary means of contacting your organization. The final report form uses information from your user management profile, so it must be correct. You can access the user management profile via the navigation bar on the left. To begin working on your final report, navigate to the Dashboard section and click the Initiate Final Report button on this FY26 CDF tile. This video will not provide field-by-field instructions for the final report. However, instructions are included with most fields of the online form. They are in blue boxes placed above and sometimes below the questions. The information provided in the final report must detail the project described in your organization's FY26 grant agreement or approved addendum. When you launch the final report, you will see the 4 final report sections as displayed in the screenshot in the upper left. To unlock the final steps, you will need to complete the first 3 sections, which include organization information, project information, and budget information. As seen in the screenshot in the bottom right, the information from your FY26 CDF application appears in gray boxes above each question. This is to serve as a guide and to remind you of what you included in your funded proposal. A previously submitted and approved full addendum will be reflected in the gray boxes, replacing the information that was provided in your initial application. Also, if you requested and were approved for a scope change, the changes are reflected in the gray boxes, replacing the information that was provided in your initial application. Remember that in this final report, you are describing what actually happened, so do not copy and paste the information from these fields. The application language is a tool to use for comparison and may not accurately depict what happened. Please note, your report should not include any activities that are unrelated to your CDF award. To be clear, if the CDF did not fund the activity, do not include the activity in your report. That said, your program officer will expect your report to include a high level of detail about your CDF funded activities. A common reason for revisions requests is because a report is lacking specific and measurable detail. On the screen is sample text to illustrate what we mean when we say a high level of detail. The 2 paragraphs shown here relate to the same program. The first is short and vague. The second includes the kind of details we seek. It includes the exact number of events that took place, the duration, details about the direct recipients, the staff names, and information about exact dates and audiences served. Feel free to press pause on the recording here to review this slide. The final report will include questions about your direct and indirect service recipients. For services delivered online, please detail to the best of your ability how you reached New York City audiences and provide analytics that support your entries for the number of New York City individuals served for the direct and indirect audience line items. Locations. Most grantees will be able to enter all programmatic locations in the online report form. The form accepts up to 50 locations. A screenshot of that section of the report form is shown on this slide. To be clear, this section refers to where the programs took place and not where the participants are from. Web-based programs should have at least one entry in this form. You should enter the administrative address of your organization, even if personnel delivering those programs did so from their homes. Below the locations venues list, it asks you to indicate if your CDF funded activity took place in more than 50 locations. If so, check yes, and you will be prompted to complete and submit the additional locations template, which you can download from our website and upload directly into the final report form. As in the past, supplemental materials will be shared with DCLA online. Do not mail hard copies to the DCLA office. These submissions will not be accepted. Your final report supplemental materials will be uploaded directly into the online final report form. Each organization must submit a PDF of up to 10 pages of substantiating material related to the completed CDF project. You may submit clearly labeled images, press, promotional materials, playbills, or other programmatic items for all aspects of the funded project. The conflict of interest certification and additional location templates are available for download on the reporting page of the DCLA website. If applicable, you will upload the completed templates directly into the final report form in the required documentation subsection. Your organization is expected to report on the funded project as it was proposed and as summarized in your grant agreement. However, we understand that sometimes there are unforeseen changes to that activity. There are two main reasons why FY26 CDF grantees are required to file the FY26 Scope of Service Request for Revision form, also known as the scope change, as a component of the final report. First, if there was a 25% increase or decrease in the overall project budget from the originally submitted application or addendum. Second, is if there were significant changes between the content, scope, or details of services outlined in your proposal and what you actually executed. If you have questions regarding the threshold for submitting a scope change, please contact your program officer. Please note, the scope change form is embedded within the final report form in the project summary section. You can see a screenshot of that page on this slide. Organizations whose projects were not significantly changed in budget or content, or if you submitted a scope change prior to the final report window opening in June, you can select No under Scope Changes. If you do need to complete a scope change form, or if you submitted one previously and need to report further changes, you will select Yes to this question and click the red Add Scope Change button. When you select Add Scope Change, you will be directed to a subsection of the final report form where you can complete and submit the scope change request. You'll notice that the portal will say Scope Change at the top, and there will be a new list of sections. When you get to the end of the scope change, you will be asked to confirm and submit the request. You will see a final confirmation screen when you are ready to submit. Once you have done so, you will receive an email confirming receipt. Then you will be brought back to the final report form where you can now see that your scope change request has been submitted. Changes in scope will be reviewed alongside your organization's online final report, and your program officer will reach out with any requests for revision. The scope change request should only include an explanation of what changed between your grant agreement and your final report and why. Your final report should reflect and report on the actual public service activities that took place between July 1st, 2025 and June 30th, 2026. Think of the scope change request as the bridge between your FY26 application and your FY26 final report. The application is where you propose what you expect to do. The scope change request is where you can briefly explain what changed, why, when, and how. And the final report is where you describe what took place. As mentioned earlier, when you submit a scope change request, the final report form will automatically update any corresponding gray boxes to reflect what is included in the scope change request, replacing the information that was provided in the initial application or a previously approved full addendum or previously submitted and approved scope change. If you start a scope change request, you will not be able to delete it. So please only click Add Scope Change once you have confirmed your organization needs to submit one. If you start one in error, you will need to submit it. Please indicate in your description that it was started in error, and your program officer will disregard it during review. Please remember, the text in the gray boxes is only for your reference. If you accidentally submitted a scope change and that text appears in the gray boxes, Or if you submitted an addendum and the original submission still populates the gray boxes, it is your responsibility to ignore the incorrect grayed out sections and complete the actual report form accurately. After you have submitted the CDF final report, your program officer will review the report for eligibility, completeness, and accuracy. If there are no required changes or revisions necessary to your final report, your program officer will update the report status to approved and notify you via email that your report is complete. No further action will be required on your end. After the final report has been approved, we can proceed with issuing any final payment due on the grant. If your report status is revisions requested, this means your report could not be approved as submitted. Expect an automated email from the platform prompting you to log back into the portal. You will see a View Notes button on the FY26 CDF tile. When clicked, that button will open a window containing instructions from your program officer on how to adjust or correct your report. Give this your immediate attention, follow the instructions provided, and resubmit the final report form. On this slide, in the top left corner, you can see a screenshot of the DCLA portal dashboard and the View Notes button on the FY26 CDF tile. When clicked, that button will open a window containing instructions from your program officer on how to adjust or correct your report, shown in the screenshot in the lower right. Once you resubmit your revised final report, your program officer will re-examine the report and either request more revisions or approve your report. We recommend spending some extra time on your end to ensure your first draft is in great shape. On the next slide, we'll address a few pitfalls that have historically contributed to delays. Our goal is to approve your final report as quickly as possible. You can avoid delays by following the instructions closely. Please be sure to submit the final report, which may include a scope change form, by the deadline. Include sufficient detail in your report. Exclude any activities funded by City Council initiatives in the CDF report. Revise the text from the grayed out section. Do not copy and paste text from the grayed out sections. And make sure your report does not refer to any activities outside of the city's 5 boroughs or outside of the city's 2026 fiscal year, which is July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. Even if this information is just meant as context, please don't include it. If you provide any dates outside of the fiscal year or locations outside of New York City, a revision will be requested. As a final reminder, the deadline for the CDF report is Monday, August 3rd at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, if you have specific questions about how to complete this report for your organization, please email your program officer directly. Thank you for watching this recorded webinar, and we look forward to working with you.